Hey there friends, it's me Genevieve here at the Thunderbird Handcrafted, and today we are making the Crafters Carryall tote bag from Kandou Crafts. This is such a fun, unique way to put together a crafter carryall bag. Do me a favor, go hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed to my channel, and make sure you like and share this tutorial. Make sure you leave a comment below if this is a bag that you think you would make, and feel free to ask me any questions as we go along in this tutorial. I am super excited to share this make. I love Kandou Crafts bags. I've made several of them, and I feel like they come together so nice and professional looking and really take a classic silhouette into another level. So I'm excited to share this one today. We are going to be making the large version. This is the smaller of the two that are in the pattern. And like I said, it just has some really unique ways of coming together that are very different than other crafter bags that I have made in the past. So let's get ready. I'm going to share all of the details, all the links for things I use are in the in the details of this video for you, so that you can create your own. So let's get started. I'm going to do my best to walk you through each step of this bag. So let's just have a disclaimer before we go any further. I've had this channel since 2022. When I first started recording myself here for YouTube, I had really no inkling of becoming a YouTuber. I was sharing what I loved, trying to share step by step, but it was most definitely the glamour shot years. So if you've watched one of my older tutorials and were like, she missed that step or she talks with her hands too much, it is what it is. I'm sorry. All of us are just doing the best we can. And my main goal of having this channel is really to create and share cozy crafting with people who enjoy cozy crafting. To share the joy of my art and my hand-dyed fabrics and design. To share a little bit of my fashion knowledge and my marketing and sales knowledge as we go along. But really for all of us to find the joys in our crafting. And so if I miss something in today's tutorial, there is a pattern to go along with it, and Kandou Crafts always has their own step-by-step tutorial. So with that being said, hopefully you'll join me today just for some fun, cozy sewing together. Let's do a little walkthrough of this bag, because a crafter bag is a fairly classic silhouette. And like I said, a lot of people, when I said I was making this, were like, well, I've made other craft carryall bags. You know, it really doesn't look like it's any different. There are some very key features here. And if you're someone who sews to sell, I think this bag in general, particularly the smaller version, would be a great addition to a market, or if you are selling bags in consignment. Because this type of bag, a crafter bag, are ones that I know many people do sell. And so the classic silhouette of this is great, but the features that are added to this specific pattern, I think elevate it just a little bit to make it unique as well. So the first thing is your base. So the way this base goes on, I want you to pay attention to that today, because this base really creates a very structured bottom and a very nice sitting look for a carryall bag, like a crafter bag. And so really pay attention to how this goes on. The other feature that's unique and different is this little additional pouch that snaps in and out that can be pulled out and used on its own. So that's also a really great feature of this bag that I think is different than what you would see with other crafter bags. And then lastly, I think is a really great bag for panels. And what panels allow you is to make your bags personalized to almost like a graphic tee for somebody, for them to find something that makes it feel like them. And so being able to use it with a panel, which I do show how I cut the panel piece for this, since this isn't part of the pattern, I do share that with you guys. So those are really the three ways that I feel this crafter bag is unique and different than the other crafter bags that you're going to find, the patterns you're going to find, and why I think it would be great to be one of your new additions to your markets. Let's start with what we need. So first thing you're going to need is you're going to need the Crafter's Carryall Tote from Kandou Pattern. There are 2 sizes. Like I said, this one here that I made with the Homebody Club book lover panel and my butterbeer dyed fabric. This one is the small version. We are going to be making the large version today for the tutorial. So we're going to be using my industrial machine. I just feel like for the different steps of this, using my industrial machine is easier. However, I totally think this bag could be done on a domestic machine. It's really wherever you feel most comfortable. So we're going to be doing the large version. So you definitely want to have your pattern. The next thing you're going to need is you're going to need snaps or some type of snap attachment. What I'm going to be using plastic snaps. I have a cam snap hand press. You could totally use a metal snap on this and use your big cam snap if you want to, but I'm going to be using my plastic snaps. I am going to be putting feet on the larger version just because I feel like the small one, I didn't feel like I really needed the feet, but I feel like for the bigger version, I want to do the feet. I'm also going to be using some binded and dyed. That's what I used for my cinch on my small version, so I'm going to continue to do that. This is the 1 1/4 inch binded and dyed from our website. This is in coral reef, if we still have some of this colorway available. Every year we do dye over 2,000 yards of binding in both sizes, 1 inch and 1 1/4 inch. We will be adding 3/8 inch this summer, so stay tuned in 2027 for the 3/8 inch. And we have a kitty who wants to check things out. Hello, Mr. Gunther. Okay, let's get down. Have our 1 inch binding. This is variegated pastel measuring tape binding that I thought would be really fun for a carry-all, a crafter bag. And this is from Salty Sews. I am going to be using Wizardry Stitchery Fairy Floss thread. And so I figured I have so many colors in this. I thought the Fairy Floss would be great as well. Obviously, you're going to need a stiletto, maybe a ripper, and a marking pen, other than all your other sewing supplies like double-sided tape, snips, the things that we always use when we're sewing. So those are the supplies. Now let's talk about fabrics. So for my first one, for this version, I use one of our book lover panels, which is a sailcloth canvas. I did not Odie coat this, even though I love using Odie coat on our sailcloth canvas. I wanted to, I feel for the Crafter Carryall, I wanted to kind of have a little bit of a softer feel. And then I also used for the exterior, I used some My Little Shindig vinyl. I like her vinyl because it's a little bit of more of a domestic friendly vinyl. And I thought it's similar in weight, right? I also used some of Mormino water resistant canvas. This is some of her recycled water resistant canvas, which I really enjoyed working with. And then I also used some of our linen cotton canvas hand dyed fabric. My inside is all that water resistant canvas. So I really enjoyed those weights of fabrics. So for my large version, I decided I wanted to do something similar, but I also still wanted it to kind of have that soft look to it. So I decided to use some of our dyed fabrics. So this is a brushed cotton. This is what I'm going to be using for the cinch top. I am using some of our Kona cotton as well. This is going to be this part of the bag. So I have that interface with some 101. These are my pockets. I am also using a book lover panel. So this is also part of my pockets, the sailcloth canvas. This is some vintage milled denim. So we don't have this color just yet, but if you all want the, I feel like it needs to be called Earth. Because it's just this really pretty brown color. It reminds me of the brown of our eggs, and when you see the rest of what I chose, you'll understand why I thought this would be a good one. So this is our vintage denim. We do have it in a hickory stripe, and then we also have it in a black vintage wash. So definitely check this out. These are milled with vintage machines here in Pennsylvania, and we're really happy to work with them as one of our vendors as they try to bring back this trade that is basically non-existent in the United States. So really excited to use that in this. And then, like I said, we are using a book lover panel, and I'm going to show you now what I did to fit my panel in the center here, okay? Because, you know, that's not something, there is no pattern necessarily to create the panel front on this bag. So I'm going to show you that real quick. So here's one of our book lover panels in its glory before it's cut apart. So it's a 18 by 56 inch piece of fabric, a half yard piece, right? That's broken into an area that has your panel piece, and it also has a coordinate. So what I did for both of these, I took the panel, the tote bag pocket piece, right? And it has markings for center marks. What I did is I folded in my sides like so, okay? So I knew that's my panel, all right? And then I brought it to here. I found my center mark on here, okay? So really all I do for that is I kind of fold it in half to see where's the center, okay? I usually make a little crease there. And then I find that center, and this is what I trace, okay? And then I'm gonna add another, whatever seam allowance I want, whether it's a 1/4 inch or 3/8 or 1/2 of an inch. Then I add that to just these side pieces, okay? So that I have those. And then what I did after I have my panel piece cut out, so this is actually the small version. After I have this piece cut out, then I take this and I fold it like so, because I need 2 of the sides. And I add my 1/4 inch seam allowance as well. So now I have that front panel piece, okay? Same as here. So this was my panel, all right? And then I needed to cut out my sides. But you want to make sure that you're accounting that you're going to have to sew these together and what your seam allowance is going to be, okay? So that's how I create the panel front for the bag using the pattern piece from Kandou Crafts. So I have my panel pieces, I have my denim. Then I also need to have whatever my pocket liners are going to be. I have my base. So this is the base of my bag. I still need to make my markings for my feet on this. But the pattern does come with measurements for your foam bottom, your foam base. This is self-adhesive foam I have from Fabric Therapy. I like it when I have something like this that I'm not going to have to sew over it or anything like that. So this is my base. This is my inner side area here. So I cut those out of the denim, and then I interfaced just with the 101 there. Here is my little pocket piece. This bag has such cute features, but this is my little pouch that snaps here in the front. So I have that cut out in some of our dyed fabric and some of the sailcloth. So I have the cotton the brushed cotton interfaced in some 101. I did not interface at all my sailcloth. And then I have some of our linen cotton canvas dyed fabric in our fern and fig, and that is interfaced as well with a 101. So those are all my fabrics that I am using, and all of the prints can be found on our website. We do quarterly pre-orders. Our next pre-order is going to be in April, mainly for apparel fabrics, but Kona cotton will be on there because you can use Kona for apparel as well. So watch for that, but we do have some retail inventory if there's a specific print, and we do have plenty of the Queen of the Coop book lover panels if you resonate with that. So there's that. The other thing you always want to have in every bag make is you always want some fun tags. So I have 2 cork tags. One is my logo tag that I want to make sure is on here. Make sure you sign your bag or label it in some way. And then I also have a fashion tag or statement tag that has old fashioned on purpose. This is one of our tag designs that's in a set called our homesteading set. It comes with 2 other fun tags. This is something that I just feel like is always super fun to add. So we work in collaboration with the Heartwood and Hide Co. on our tags. Jade and Chris that own the Heartwood and Hide, they have a bunch of other fun statement tags if you want to check them out. They also do have a way that you can reach out to them to create your own tags. So make sure you follow the Heartwood and Hide Co. and then also go over and check our accessories and notions for the different tags that we have available. And then I also have 2 woven labels. One is from the Sewing Blurb subscription. It says Rip It, and I figured since it's purple and green, it works. And then I also got my own woven tags made with my logo. So I'm going to add that to the little slip pouch as well. So tags are always a fun way, a fun statement to add to any bag, but especially a bag that's like meant for all of your crafty fun things. So make sure you have your tags. All right, our first step is to put our bag feet on. And so you want to use your template that you got with your pattern. So I'm just going to mark these. I'm just going to push through my paper and use my marking pen to mark each of these bag feet. Okay, so now I have them marked. I'm going to just punch with my hole puncher a hole. And like I said, I felt like the larger version that the bag feet would be really nice, but I don't necessarily feel like they're necessary. It's just an added extra. Now I'm not sure where I grabbed these bag feet from. I've had them for a while. There's not a whole lot of hardware with this, so you don't have to do any hardware at all. So that's also nice if you're doing markets and fairs. So I'm going to push the screw area up through that hole. And then I do want to get some 3-in-1 glue. What's important, especially with any type of screw hardware, is you want to glue it. And this glue has been leaking out all over. That's always a nice, fun thing. Okay, and so I'm just gonna put a little dab of 3-in-1 glue in there, and then screw this on. Since I'm going through that interfacing, I'm not going to necessarily worry about adding anything to hold it. this screwdriver set, magnetic screwdriver set. I got this a couple years ago on Amazon. I'll see if I can find the link for it. So there's that one, and I was going to do that for all of them, and then I'm going to take some more of this adhesive foam, and I'm going to add strips here to cover these. And there you have it. There you have our base. So now in the pattern, it tells us to fold these inward, okay, and to stitch right along here. I found that on my first one to make it really difficult necessarily to close this. So for this one, I'm going to try something a little different. I am actually going to use some double-sided tape, and I'm going to run the double-sided tape right along my edge, because we're still going to top stitch this when we put it on the base, but I want to make sure that I'm able to catch everything. So I am going to just put double-sided tape along here. I'm not going to pull it off yet. I'm going to wait till we're ready. But just so you know that this part of the actual pattern is telling you to fold this over, okay, and to stitch a top stitch right along here, to not the side, not the narrow edge, but the long edge. And so I'm trying something a little different here with it. But here's our base. We're going to start with our panel piece and making that front long panel out of our book lover panel. So we always want to clip our centers. I'm going to focus on just clipping my top and my bottom since this is part of a bigger piece. So I'm just going to clip my centers, and then I am going to add one of my cork tags that I felt like went really well. I'm going to use my logo tag here, and I need to remember the seam allowance for this bag is a 1/2 inch. So we want to make sure that if we're going to add a tag, so right there's my 1/2 inch. So if I'm going to do 1 inch from the top, that's where it would land. Maybe I want it to be 1 1/4 inches. I think that's what I want to do. So I'm going to mark that. Make sure I'm straight from the center. Okay. I'm going to use some double-sided tape on the back of my tag. I could put a frame on this, but since I'm not using any other vinyl, I'm not going to do that today. And then I want to find my center of my tag, which is the C. And I'm going to just place that right down there. And now we're going to just do a top stitch border around this tag. And there we have our tag on. Now, in order to add our sides, now remember I cut these sides so that I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance on either side here. And that, like I said, that's really up to you what seam allowance you want to use if you're doing a panel. If you want to stick with your 1/2 inch, that's part of the pattern. Or if you want to create your own, I'm just going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's why, that way I didn't have a whole lot of bulk happening. Pull some threads through here. And I'm just going to stitch that straight down, back stitch at the beginning and the end. And there we have our full panel piece for the exterior. All right, so this is our opposite side panel piece, okay, that I have just one big cut of the vintage denim. This is the side that I'm going to add my snap for the little slip pouch that fits down in the pocket. So for my tag here, I learned on my last one to not gauge it from the top, because if I put a tag here, it really depends on where your snap and your fold ends up on that pouch. So I'm actually going to place the tag that I want from the bottom up. So remember, you do still have that 1/2 inch seam allowance. So think about that. I think I'm going to actually do this one like 2 3/4 of the way up. That way I know it's going to be placed high enough from like the bottom that it'll be seen, but it won't be placed too close to the top where that snap is going to be. So I'm just going to make a little mark like I did on the other side. And I'm going to use some double-sided tape for my tag. And I'm just going to place that. I want to find where my center is, which is on the S in Old Fashioned. And we'll place it there like so. And now we're going to stitch that on. And there's that panel. So now we have both of our exterior panels completed. We want to add the slip part of our pockets to this now. All right, so I have this really cute vintage chicken container fabric. This is some of our designs from Junebug Darling. I love her art. It's very whimsical and homesteady and wonderful. So I chose this to go along with it because I thought the coloring was really great and so forth. So I have my top notch is really what I need here. So we're going to lay these right sides facing each other and find that notch. Okay. And we're going to clip that in place across the top. And when I get here, I'm just pushing my seam to the outside where my panel is meeting. And you'll notice that I did not top stitch my panel yet, okay? Because we're going to stitch this first. Remember, this is a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So if you want, you could put your guide at your 1/2 inch, okay? And we're going to stitch this straight across, back stitching at the beginning and the end. So now that one's done, I'm just going to set that aside and I'm going to grab my other panel piece. Okay, so here's my other panel piece. And I'm just going to line that up as well with that center top mark. Now we're going to prepare both of these to go on our exterior pieces to create our pockets. So the first thing we do want to do is top stitch these. So I mainly like to finger press this and roll my seams. This is one of the reasons I like using fabrics that are a little softer. especially this vintage milled denim is so nice for this. And then just clip them where I want it to land. Because this denim does have not a lot of stretch, but it does have a little bit of stretch. So just keep that in mind when you're prepping this, if you're using some of our vintage milled denim. I don't feel like it's stretched that's going to create a problem for you. It's just, it does have, like here, I want to make sure that I'm straight. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a top stitch 1/8 of an inch from the top, but we're also going to stay stitch this all the way around. And there's a reason for that, and it has to do with our base. Okay, so now I top stitched all along to shore up both of my exterior panel pocket pieces. All right, I did not top stitch where my panels meet because those I want to be my pockets. Now this is the part where you get to decide for yourself. In the pattern, Kandou Crafts does have a couple different options for you to decide where you want to put your pockets. So this is really where you get to decide, you know, what sizes of pockets you want. I am going to create the same pockets on both sides. You could create different pockets on one side from the other. I use a chalk pen for this. Let me just widen the screen a little bit for you guys so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just going to mark, because once I stitch these onto the exterior piece, I am just going to stitch my top stitch down these to create my pockets here. So I'll have 3 pockets, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I just have my pieces lined up, and I created marks with my chalk marker. And now I'm just going to grab my ruler, and I'm just going to line that up on the bottom with that marking and just create a line straight down so that when it's time to do that, I have a straight line there. You can really decide what you want. Why I'm doing just these here is because also I'm adding that slip pouch onto this side. So I'm actually going to be sewing my top stitch for my pocket on the outside of this line, not straight on this line, because I want that pouch to fit nicely. Okay. She does have measurements for all of that in the pattern, but just so you know, this is how I'm doing it. Now that we have both of those panel pieces stitched so that they stay together, you're going to get your exterior piece that we're going to lay our panel on top of. I am using this beautiful hand ice dyed, and this is like a gravity dye that I do. This is in our Fern and Fig, if there's any of it left over on the website. And I just thought the green went really great with the purples and the browns and would pull out some of that. So we're going to line this panel piece up with our boxed edges. Okay. I'm going to line that up together, and I'm going to clip that in place. Now remember, we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. So we have a fair amount of give along the edges. All right. If they're not exact, don't stress yourself about it. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to stitch we're going to do a 1/4 inch or somewhere in between-ish is what I'm going to try to focus on. From the edges, and then we're going to stay right on top of our stay stitch line here, okay, to secure these. And then we're also going to top stitch our pocket markings onto onto this. So that's the next piece of the puzzle. Now we're going to do it for the other side, the same process. We're going to line this up like so. And we're going to do the same with our pockets, but I'm going to go just slightly on the outside of my marked line. In the pattern, she has a measurement for carry handles and shoulder straps. I did the carry handles for the small one, but for the large one, I'm going to do the shoulder strap. Now she has it for leather, not woven webbing. So I'm actually going to, I added an inch. So I'm going to be folding this up a 1/2 inch. So that way I still get the length of what she recommends. But we're going to position these onto both of our exterior pieces now, and then I'm going to be riveting those. My first ones I just did the stitch X. This one here I'm going to be riveting. So I'm going to start working on that process. All of the measurements for this are in the pattern, so I'm not going to go over any of that. I'm just going to be sharing how I'm doing that here with what she tells us to do. The only thing I did differently was I added an extra 1/2 inch so that I could fold it under and not have the raw edge of the webbing. So if you saw, I added a tack. I felt like this just needs a little bit more reinforcement than the actual rivets. And then the other thing I'm adding to my rivets is I have these rivet washers. Jade from the Heart Wouldn't Hide. She has these on her website occasionally. I'm not sure if she has them up there right now, but she does them in different vinyl colors. And I'm going to use just this like brown leather color as my rivet washers for this. And then I have my cam press and my rivets. So I am going to position these rivets. And so I made this 2-inch mark, right? And I know that I have my seam allowance is a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to position these rivets. And there is directions in the pattern for them as well. Okay, so there's my first one. And then I'm just going to make my hole using my rivet press right where my markings are. And Paula's gonna say, "What are you doing, Mom?" Okay, so I have my 2 marks. I'm gonna grab a rivet and a rivet washer. And I'm gonna use these rivet washers as just kind of a design element on this bag, not necessarily as what they are really useful for. I mean, maybe I will. Let's see what it looks like without the rivet washer on the front. Probably will be just fine, but I do think we might need the rivet washer on the back. So I'm going to put the rivet washer on the back. That's going to help it so that this rivet doesn't pull through, especially with this being a bigger bag. And whatever, like if it's heavy, whatever is going in it. So I am going to put the rivet washer on the back of these. Push this through. Come on. There we go. Put the rivet washer on the back. Now these are pretty long rivets in order to add that washer on there. So, and then I'm going to do the same over here. The next stage in this is working on the base. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our exterior pieces right side together. We have this bottom piece that we're going to clip together. We just want to make sure that everything is kind of lining up. We're not going to sew this yet, but we do want to kind of make sure that we're lining that up. So I clip this as well. What I'll focus on clipping first. Just because I want to make sure that that is also lining up, not just my bottom. So I'm clipping that, and then here's my bottom piece. Okay, I'm just going to put 2 clips in there. All right, and unlike we normally would, this bottom is going to be a little different than what you might think. And like I said, that's kind of where the uniqueness of this crafter bag comes into play. So we're going to do our 1/2 inch seam allowance here in the bottom, and we are going to stitch this seam right here closed with our 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay. All right, and so now we're going to just open this up so we can see our full base. Okay, I'll lay it this way for you guys so you can see it, just like so. I'm going to press that flat, finger press it. We have our finger press tools. You could run one of those along here. We want to make sure that this is nice and flat. All right, because now we're going to add the base. And this is the part, like I said, that's very different and unique. Okay, so after you did that, you piece these 2 pieces together. You're going to take your center panel piece, and this is the part that's pretty, she gives you a way of doing it in the pattern, which isn't necessarily wrong. I just felt like the first time I did it, because I did what she said, it's like the first instruction in the pattern is to top stitch this, like I said, that you fold these sides under, the long sides under, and you top stitch along here. I purposely, in this second one, decided not to do that so that I could adjust where this was going to end as far as where it's folded into. Because I felt like in my first one, when I folded it in and got to this part where I needed to stitch it to my bottom, it was a little off as far as like catching. So I recommend that you wait, that you use double-sided tape to fold it in, lay it on here, see where it's ending, that it's going to catch your other fabric, okay? And then stitch it down like what I'm going to do now. Just because if by some reason you're a little bit up higher than what you're supposed to be, that bottom piece isn't going to fit or catch that fabric if it's not exact. So I chose not to top stitch my long sides first and use double-sided tape, and then move my double-sided tape to like, okay, this is fitting the way I want it to fit. So, but like I said, I just want to encourage you to really position this when you get here, and not to top stitch this. I would just use double-sided tape to start so that you can adjust it. The next step for us is to close up this bag just like you would any boxed corner bag. So we're going to meet our top center marks, and I'm going to put a clip there just to hold that part in place. Okay. And then we're going to get our sides, and you want to make sure that we're matching up this pocket. Okay. So I'm going to add a clip there. I'm going to add a clip here. Pull out this so that it's not in the way. Don't stress too much if you're not meeting up here. We do have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so we'll be okay. Same thing over here. We want to make sure that our pockets, that's where we're meeting. This denim does fray, but not to the extent that it's going to be an issue. We're just going to have to clip some of these threads then when we're all done. So we're clipping our sides. All right. And we're going to sew this down with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. She doesn't have us clipping our seams, so we're not going to do that, okay? Okay, so now we have our side seams done. Where I am going to clip is I am going to clip just a slight angle here, not to my stitches, but I'm going to clip an angle here just to reduce some bulk there at the bottom, okay? Because now we're going to box these corners. They are also at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so we want to find our center, okay? And we're going to split our seam like so. Okay, and I do mine from the top. All right, so I look at it from the bottom, but then I'm going to flip it to the top to stitch this closed. And I like to add a clip back in here in my angle just to keep it in place as I do that. So we're doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. You want to back stitch at the beginning and the end so it's nice and secure. We're not going to clip that either. We're going to go over and do the other side. So we're going to turn it this way so we can see it. Find our center. Open our seam here. Okay. I'm going to clip that one. And now I'm going to just kind of look from this side. And I'm going to clip back here. I'm going to clip back here. And now we're going to do this side with 1/2 inch. Okay. This is what I love about this base. It really creates such a nice boxed bottom. And I think that's a huge difference to other project bags that I've made in the past. Many of them either have round bottoms or not super structured. And so this just really creates a really nice look. So there we have our exterior. So nice. It's going to be so pretty when it's all done. All right. So let's start. Let's take our break. Let's take a breather. Go get your drinky, grab a snack, and then we're going to come back and we are going to start the interior. All right, we're back. We're going to work on our interior now. So we're starting with our interior pockets. So I have my sailcloth canvas from the Book Lover panel. And then I also have some of the dyed brush cotton. Now you just want to make sure that your directions are like your fabric direction is correct. Our brush cotton, the way you tell the difference between the top and the bottom is the top is going to feel very velvety. So you want to just keep that in mind if you're using any of our brush cotton that's dyed, because obviously dyed fabric isn't like printed fabric. The dye goes through the whole thing. So it'll look like this is the top, but it actually, when you feel the brush cotton, you can definitely feel the difference. So what we're going to do is we're going to put right sides together on these. I'm going to set one to the side, and we're going to do 1/2 inch seam allowance on both sides. Okay, so we're taking this and lining it up to this like so. Okay, and we're going to do 1/2 inch on both sides, making a tube. So we're going to do that for both of them. I could have done this part on my domestic machine because my fabricator, I mean, she'll sew this thin a fabric with no interfacing, but she likes something a little beefier. But we're just gonna hope and pray that she there's one. We'll do the second one here, and then we'll turn them. So now I'm just going to turn these right side out. Okay. And I am going to iron these just because they are, you could just finger press them if you want, but I'm going to iron mine so that they're laying nice and flat. And then we're going to add them to our interiors and make our pockets. Okay, now that I have these ironed, you can choose a few things here. So you could choose to top stitch this before we add it to our interior. I'm not going to top stitch this one. I did top stitch my smaller one, but I'm not going to do that. You could also choose, if you wanted to, at this point, you could also add elastic here, but I would recommend that you maybe add 1 inch or 2 to this portion when you're cutting it, if that was what you were going to do. If you just wanted to do kind of like an elastic pocket, depending on what your craft is, that might be better than having individual pockets. I plan to use this to put my seeds in. I'm going to use this for stuff that I use outside when I'm gardening or with the chickens, my gloves, that sort of thing. It's all washable, this bag, so I'm not really concerned that it isn't water resistant or anything like that. It's going to be something that I do bring indoors, but I figured this would be something I have like these containers that I put all my seeds in, just something to store it, but also to use. I could also use it to gather eggs if I really, really wanted to. But it's pretty for that. But we use regular buckets for that because we have too many chickens. But just so you know, like, this is an area where if you wanted to get a little creative on how your interior pockets are, again, she does have instructions in the pattern on maybe how to break them up depending on what you're doing. I'm just going to break them up into 3s just like I did prior. And so here we go. So my interior is our vintage chickies. And this is the book lover panel. Again, this is also a Junebug Darling design. So I feel like even though these colors, the only color that matches here is our golden chicken, I still feel like her designs just go really well with all of her other designs. And it was pulling like my green, it was pulling my green color from my exterior, and it's pulling my purple color from my purple dye. So I felt like it all worked out just fine. And so, you know, the larger one does take a decent amount of fabric. that is something to think about before you start, of like what fabrics are you coordinating and what do you need. So we're gonna lay this out. I do want to get my top notch in here and my bottom notch before I lay these down. And then we're gonna measure up from our square. Alrighty, ruler found. So we're gonna measure up 1 inch from this marking of our top of our squared off bottom, because that's where we're gonna lay this pocket piece, is 1 inch above that. So I'm gonna mark that on this one. And oh, I dropped my other lining. Make sure we're where we need to be here, everybody. Okay, so now I'm gonna also measure up 1 inch on this one as well, because that's where my pocket piece is going to, the bottom of it is going to land. Okay. I'm going to also find my center at the top, because we're going to need that center. Okay. The center mark down at the bottom, I mean, it's helpful, but it's not as necessary as, say, the one that's going to trim off this excess interfacing here. Okay, so here we are. We are going to take one of these and we're going to line it up with our marks. So my 1 inch mark is right there. So I want to line this up and clip it in place. You could use double-sided tape on the bottom here if you wanted to. And I'm going to line it up here as well. There's one. So now I'm going to do it here also. And then before I stitch this up, I'm going to stitch this all the way around, okay? And then I want to find where my pocket pieces are. So I'm actually going to use on this fabric, because it's very symmetric, I'm going to actually use these dots to help me with where I want my pockets to be, I think. Let's see. Maybe not, because it looks like we're not the same. Well, I guess we're going to have to measure. We're going to have to measure. That's all right. So I'm going to use my top marking to just mark where the center is here. I'm going to make my marks from there out. So I'm going to do 4. I kind of want these pockets on the sides to be a little bit bigger than what my ones were on my first one. I mean, they're bigger as in it's bigger, but I want it to be them to be a little bit bigger, because remember, we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. So just keep that in mind, is that we're going to lose some. I just put that cap over there. There we go. Okay. And then before I go any further, I'm going to grab my one woven label here so that I have that to put that in. You could choose to, the hardest, this bag in particular, I might not add the woven label to this because you're not going to see it here. This is down in there. So I think I'm going to keep this woven label for like right in the bottom, even though I've not ripped it good. Fingers crossed. And we're just going to stitch these closed. Okay. So that's what we're going to do next. And we're going to stitch our lines for our pocket. Ran out of bobbin. So I want to pull more of this out so I have extra to knot it off. Pull this all the way through. And we're going to make a bobbin. All right, we got our bobbin in. And we're going to put our needle down right where where we stopped. And finish. I'm going to wait to pull all my threads through until after I have the other one done. So I need to stay stitch the second one, make my lines again, and get this one all finished as well. So that's the next step, is just doing the same thing again. All right, we have both of our interiors pieced together. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put them right sides together. Okay, and we want to make sure we're lining up our pockets. They should line up pretty much exact. All right, so we're going to clip our sides together. All right, and now we're going to stitch them. So we want to check down here. We're going to stitch our sides at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, just like we did our exterior. And then what we're going to do down here is we're going to stitch in about 2 inches, and we're going to leave an opening because we're going to turn it through the bottom. Okay? So we need our seam guide again. And then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do my 1/2 inch, and I'm going to do 2 inches in. Now we're going to just clip our threads where we need to clip them.
Yeah.
Yes.
You on the phone or something?
I was recording, so thanks for the burp. All right, now that we have that, we're going to do again, we're going to make our box corners. So I always go from my bottom first. All right. We line up the seam. We're going to open our seam here. And then I want to clip. So I'm looking at it from this direction. Okay. So I'm going to just clip this back here. Clip this here. And now we're going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance right there. Back stitching at the beginning and the end. All right, so now we have our interior, for the most part, complete. And that's how it looks right now. We're going to move on to the next part, which is our drawstring area. So this is just going to get set aside. Okay, at this point, you're going to want to get your drawstring pieces. So I have both of mine here. I have them facing right side up. Okay, on your pattern piece for these, there are 2 places to mark. So just to show you, there's a marking right here that I want to make. Okay, and then there's a marking right here. I want to do that on both sides of each piece so that I have my marking of where my stitches are going to stop, because remember, you need to have an opening for your drawstring to go. So that's what we're creating right now. So you want to mark those 4 points on each one. I want to make sure I can see those markings through the other side. And I can. So I'm going to lay these right sides together. Like so. I'm going to clip them in the center here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch from that one point down. Same over here. Same from that point down and from this point down. Okay? 1/2 inch seam allowance. Back stitch at the beginning and the end. Okay. Now we're going to do the other side. You could choose to put a woven label in here somewhere. I did that on my first one. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to clip, it's about 1/2 inch from that mark. We're going to clip into our stitch, but we're not going to clip the stitch. We're just clipping in to make a little mark about 1/2 inch in. Okay. I'm going to do that over here. Not clipping our stitches. We're just clipping into like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our iron and we're going to fold these over and iron them so that they're nice and flat. What that does is it creates a nice area. So we're going to turn this all right side out now. And we're going to top stitch this now because it created a nice flat seam opening. All right, so we're going to top stitch those just to make it look nice and pretty. Okay, and then all you're going to do is you're going to pull those threads through and knot them off. Okay, so I'm going to do that to the other side as well. All right, now that you have those edges done, we're going to fold this in half so that these edges meet each other. Okay, your seams meet each other. And then we're going to open it up and we're going to start our stitch right where this ends. It's a 1 inch. And we're going to top stitch 1 inch all the way around. So you can use your seam guide. Okay. And we're going to do 1 inch all the way around. And then that's our casing for our drawstring. Mine's a little bit over 1 inch. So I'm going to expand mine a little bit. All right. Here we go. The next piece you want to grab is this inside, what does she call it, facing. This is kind of the inside of the bag at the top between your cinched area. So that's what these pieces of denim are. And I'm going to just find my center marks because we are going to need those. Those will be helpful for us in the next step. Okay, and then we're going to put those right sides together. And we're going to sew those with a 1/2 inch seam allowance on both sides. Back stitch at the beginning and the end. And then you want to clip the corners just slightly. You don't want to clip our stitches, but we want to clip some of that bulk out of there. Okay. And now we're going to attach everything together. I have 3 different pieces here. I have my lining piece that's turned right side out. I have my cinched piece that whatever side I want to see when the bag is finished, that's the side I want up. And then I have my facing piece, okay, and that's turned inside out, okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the cinched piece and we're going to lay that over top of our right side out lining. We're going to find our seams, make sure everything is lining up and the seams are laid flat. Okay. And do that for this side as well. And then we're going to take our facing piece and we're going to put that over top. All right, so I'm going to get my side seams first, lay everything flat, clip them in place. And now I'm going to just clip this all the way around to make sure everything lines up. All right, and now we're going to take this and we're going to stitch this all the way around at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I like to start in the seam here. So now that we have that done, you don't want to iron this or anything. Just going to let it be the way it is. All right. And now what we're going to do is we're going to attach this baby to our bag. So we're going to turn all of this inside out. Okay, we have our exterior of our bag. The biggest thing I want to stress is tuck these handles in. Okay, we want all of that tucked in so we don't potentially grab them. All right, and now we're going to take our exterior and we're going to put it inside our interior. We're going to find our seams. We're going to meet them. Now we're going to find our center marks. I'm just going to clip so we have this all the way around. Okay, so now we're going to start again. I'm going to start in the seam. We're going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around this. And then we'll turn her right side out and top stitch her. And the bag itself will be finished, but then we need to make our little pouch. So let's do that. Biggest thing you want to watch is those handles. Okay. So it's all stitched together. Now we're going to pull it through. I'm so excited to see it because these colors are just so pretty together. Okay, so we have it pulled through. Before we top stitch, we're going to take care of this part, which is our bottom, our base. So we're going to just kind of pinch it at either of the squared ends. We can kind of see like where this wants to close, like so, with the 1/2 inch. Okay, I'm just going to put my iron to it real quick. So hopefully it'll lay nice because I want to put my woven tag in there. So there is that. We didn't need our rippers, but we're gonna still put this woven label in there. I'm gonna clip it in the center just to hold it. And I'm gonna just start my stitch really close to the edge there. Now that we're done with that, we have to shove all of our stuff in and make everything fit nice. All right, so I did not record the top stitching. I thought I was recording it. The biggest thing you want to pay attention here when you're top stitching, especially with any rivets for your handles, is like you're going to have to really pull this webbing out of the way to get that 1/8 of an inch top seam. But everything turned out perfect. Top stitching looks great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make our, take our binding and we're going to make our cinch rope that we need. And then we're going to make our little slip pouch that goes on here and add the snap for that to clip on to the bag. But so far, everything is looking so stinking cute. Okay, for your cinch rope, if you're using binded and dyed. So I am using the 1 1/4 inch, and I'm going to fold in half and sew along it. You could totally use 1 inch, do the same thing, or we are planning, probably won't release until fall or holiday of 2026, a 3/8 inch width. So you could use any of them. It's just really whatever preference you have. I'm looking for my scissors. I'll just use my snips. Whatever preference you have for the width. So you're going to cut 2.5 yards, okay? And then you're going to line that up and you're going to cut those in half, okay? Now what I like to do, if I'm not just, because it's finished edge on the side, but it's a raw edge here, I'm just going to fold this in half this way to make a nice edge there, okay? And then I am going to make sure that it's all tucked in. And now I'm going to just top stitch. I'm going to back stitch over that. And now I'm just going to fold it. And we're just going to stitch straight down through. So we get to the other end. And then I'm going to encase that. So I'm going to do that to both of these. And this is what I love about our binding and dyed, is that it can be used for so much more than just binding. You can use it for piping, you can use it for this, you can use it on apparel, for cuffing or like the inside of things. That's the beauty of twill tape over an elastic binding or making your own cotton binding, is it's versatile to use in all different parts of your sewing. So definitely check out our binded and dyed, because we dye only certain colors all summer long. Once a certain color is sold out in a certain size, there's no guarantee that exact color will come back, because I can't control that process. Even if I dye the same color, sometimes the tape decides to accept more dye, and then it ends up being looking different than what it did the year before. So definitely grab the colors you like. And right now, when I'm recording this, we still have 3-yard cuts. But starting this year, when I start dyeing, we will only be offering 6-yard cuts. Just because you end up, no matter what project you're doing, a 6-yard cut just lasts longer. And if you're doing a really big project, it's worth just having the 6-yard cut. Okay, so there's one done. I'm just going to do the same thing to the second one, and then we're going to pull it through and make our cinched top of our bag. Okay, so there's one. Oh, and we ran out of bobbin again. All right, so let me pull this and we're gonna make another bobbin. Okay, so since I did this on here, I'm gonna pull some of this through. Okay, find where I need to pull it through to the other side. All right, so now we have both of these done. I need to find my safety pin that I use to pull things through. It's either in with my clips or it's in my other drawer. So there it is. Alrighty. So now I'm gonna grab one end of this, put my old school safety pin, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna run it in one end and around to the other, and we want to come out the same side. So you could just bring it through and knot it, and then you have to like push it closed, which is fine. Like, it's really whatever you want to do. This way will help it stay closed, and since it's such a big bag, I wanted to do it the kind of the traditional way, or maybe some would say the correct way for a cinched bag. So I'm going to pull this through. And I want to try to even find the ends of this here. Okay. And I want them to be going in the same direction. And that stomping is Apollo with Gunther, just so you know. And I'm just going to knot these off at the end. Okay, that way it doesn't pull through. And I'm just going to have them go all the way through till it's all the way open. Okay. There we go. And now I'm going to come in from this end, go around, and do the same thing. There we go. And now they cinch just like that. You could tie them at the top and a little bow if we wanted to. So cute. I love it. But there's our large crafter carryall. Now we're going to make that little pouch that's going to go back here, that's going to snap onto here, and it will snap them onto itself. So that's the last piece, and then we're done with our bag. I did make my marking that is on my pattern piece for this top snap position. Okay, so that's the only marking I'm really concerned about, is this one. All right, so mark that, and then we're going to clip this in place, and we are going to do, it's still a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and we're going to go all the way around, but we're going to leave this bottom part open. Okay. Okay, and now I'm going to clip this seam down and make some little notches here around the turn to make sure that it like lays nicely, and I'm going to iron it so that it lays flat. You only want to you still want to have like a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, So just keep that in mind and don't clip into your stitches. Okay, and the reason I said don't worry about the other marking is because this end is open, remember? Okay, and it really is up to you how much you want to close it. You could do the 1/2 inch. I just did 1/4 of an inch, but that would change, you know, where that marking would be. So just keep that in mind, that the only marking that really matters for your snaps at this point is the marking at the top. So now what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch this all the way around, and we're going to add our snap here at the top. All right, now with my stiletto, I'm going to poke the hole for my snap. That's here at the top. Just a slight poke, just so I'm able to get through. Remember, I'm doing the male portion here. A little bit slighter than the one I made. There we go. All right. I'm going to put that through like so. Set that, this piece on top of this. And I'm going to press that. Whoop, right out of my hands. My hands are getting tired towards the end. There we go. Press that. Okay, so my snap's in. Now we're going to fold this up. And this is the part where you just kind of, you get to gauge where you want it to land. I kind of want it to land that, like it looks, you know, like it's perfect, right? So that's my little pouch here. So now I have my woven label. I'm going to add my woven label to the outside like so, and I'm going to be stitching these straight down. Okay. What I could do first, if I wanted to, is I could see where the center of this lands. So if you do, sometimes like if you press, you can actually see right there it is. So that's where my other snap is going to go. So let's just do that first before we go any further. So now this is going to go in the back. Okay. And then the female end is going to go on top. And that's going to work perfect. Okay, so I'm going to put my woven label in the side here. I'm going to butt it in there as far as I can. I don't want it hanging out too far, but it's going to hang out a decent amount here. And I'm going to start here. I'm going to pull this thread through, but I'm going to go back stitch. Actually, I think I'm going to back stitch a couple times here and not pull through, just so that it's really secure. So go down 3 stitches and then I'll go back 3 stitches. And we're just going to come straight down on top of those top stitches we already made. There we go. So there's one side. And then I'll burn those little threads off. And we're going to do the same over here. We're just going to go right down on top of our stitches that we already. Now the moment of truth to see how it fits the crafter bag. So here is what it looks like on its own. And now we'll make the place for that other snap on the crafter bag. We're losing our light, everybody. That's winter in Pennsylvania. So here is the pocket that I want this to go into. So here is where it slips into the pocket. I want to make sure that this is centered as well. So that looks about right. And when it folds down, because it's going to go in, okay. So I'm just going to kind of feel, just like press down, right, like I did on the other one. And there's my marking. So where's my pen? I'm going to find the center of that little circle from my male snap piece. All right, I'll pull this out for a second. And use my stiletto. Poke through. Okay. Put my snap back in there. Put my female piece. Oh, it's pretty thick here, so I have to be able to get it in there. Okay, there we go. Snap that into place. So now we have our female snap piece. We can sit this little pouch down in there and then snap it shut. Oh my goodness. Is that not the most darling? Is not that the most, oh, I love it. That is the most darling little, oh, I love that I chose to do that print, since that's the print that coordinates with the panel. And it's what's inside, but it just goes, it just looks so nice. Obviously we have our chickens that are the inside liner, but isn't that cute? Right? And you could use, like, what I love about this is you could still use this pocket, right? But then you could make sure, like, if you have your little scissors or whatever in there, all of that is still, it's still secure, right? So, how fun. All right, we finished. There we have it. The large crafter carryall tote by Kandou Crafts. I love it. I love how it turned out. I love how the denim worked, the vintage mill denim. I love it with dyed fabric. I think that adds such a cool, crafty element to it. I do love the larger size, and I feel like if I was taking a fairly large embroidery project, like I said, this I thought I could put all of like my seed packets that I have in like plastic containers. I could put that in there. I could put my gloves that I have for just my front porch gardening in it. Like, that's kind of my thought. Also my notebook, because I do keep track of like the different seeds I have and what we plant each year. My farmer's almanac I could put in there. I also have a moon guide that I use that I like to look at, and maybe just have like whatever I want for on my front porch swing in the springtime. I feel like this is definitely either a travel crafter bag, the large one, or one that you keep that has like very specific things in. So the large one, I'm so glad we did it. This one, I do feel like if you were going to do it as a custom, I would say I would do this one more as a custom, just because the time it will take to do a larger one. Again, I love the little element of the little pouch on the outside. I love the way this box bottom comes together. So I highly recommend giving this one a try. Like I said, I think the small version is definitely, if you're doing markets, I feel like this is one where you could batch it. The size is perfect for people who are doing knitting and crocheting, small embroidery projects, oh gosh, English paper piecing. I was trying to think of the word. But yeah, But I definitely feel like this one, if you have a consignment area or you're doing markets, this is one I would definitely put on that list because everybody is doing grandma crafts, right? Grandma hobbies. And this is perfect. Also, I hope that you enjoyed me showing how to add a panel to this because our book lover panels are great. We have now probably close to 200 of them because I can't resist. And if we do keep inventory of many of our book lover panels, so head over to our website and check out our book lover panels if this is a bag you would like to make with a panel. Again, all of our dye drops happen on the 10th of every month, so if you want to add dyed fabric as well, and we do have a nice inventory of dyed fabric now too, along with our binded and dyed. So all those links are in the details for you. If you enjoyed this tutorial today, please give me a like. Please give me a share. Share it with one of your crafty friends. Share it in your group if you have a group where you share what you make, because I think this is something that everybody can enjoy because all of us have different hobbies. So again, this is Genevieve with a Thunderbird Handcrafted. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe, leave a comment of what type of crafts you would put in your craft or carry-all bag. And remember to stay cozy and stay crafty. See you next time.